What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Turf Talk YouTube channel. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to support by smashing that subscribe button, turn on notifications for whenever we go live or post a video. I'm one half of your host here, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host. Week 7 kickoff show is underway. My man, how does it feel to already be 6 weeks into the football season? I know we were just talking before we went live here about how so much is going on. Obviously, as Phillies fans, we have the MLB postseason, one win away from another World Series. The NBA community is, and the NBA season is almost underway. That's making a return. But here we are through 6 complete weeks of NFL football and a lot to get into today. We're going to get into our Week 7 power rankings, the Sunday slate, and a bunch more. But how are you feeling this Sunday morning?
I'm feeling good, man. Honestly, to answer your question, regarding just being in week 7 and, looking at it from the Eagles fan perspective, right, of being 5-1, we're 6 games into the season. And, as I was coming into this show, I was just thinking, it was right before we were hopping in here. I was just thinking, like, week 7, man, and we got to get all the way to week 18. So we still got a lot of season left to go, so far this year. And it's kind of interesting to think about, how overreactionary everything has become from a week to week basis, to the point where you have declarations on the season and on teams right now when you got 11, 12 weeks to go, or 11 games to go, whatever the case may be, depending if you had your bye week already or not. So there's really a lot of time for teams to grow, a lot of time for things to change, injuries to amount. So there's a lot of things that could change throughout this season, but I'm happy to be in it, right in the middle of it. And I'm happy to be here with you, man, getting to it. Obviously, I think it kind of threw me off as well, just missing those like 2 to 3 weeks on the wedding, the honeymoon, and like just getting reacclimated and kind of figuring out what we're doing on the show and getting all the schedule ironed out. So I think something to add in right here from the beginning of the show, we're only doing one show per week right now until the Phillies season concedes, and hopefully that ends with a World Series MLB championship.
Correct.
But nonetheless, we'll start up the 2 shows a week once the Phillies season ends, and we can focus a lot more on the games at hand. But for now, we'll keep it to one episode on Sundays, cover the games here, and do what we got to do from there, man. But yeah, happy Sunday, brother. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. Let's get into it, man. And let's get into our Week 7 pick'em segment of the show. So the way we're going to break down each and every game of today's slate outside of the Sunday night football action between the Eagles and the Dolphins, Scotty and I will take turns, kind of snake draft style, picking who we think is going to win each game and get into it that way. And I'm going to start here this week with Michael's comment. This Bills game is going to be ugly. Bills dominate on all 3 aspects of the game. Pastor Rams chiming in. No one thought the Patriots would have digressed to what they are right now. Obviously, we can get more into that in a few moments here, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills as my number 1 overall pick this week over the New England Patriots. They are a mess. They being the New England Patriots, man. Obviously, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I kind of said to you, it was heading into the Saints game. And we kind of talked about, if this team can't bounce back at home versus Derek Carr for Bill Belichick, I don't know what the future looks like for Bill in Foxborough. And I know that sounds like a crazy thing to say. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest head football coach of all time. But that clock is ticking, right? It's dwindling down right now. And the way in which they're being just dominated and manhandled week to week. You can go all the way back to the Dallas game, right? Mac Jones, is he your starter moving forward? They're injured on the defensive side of things. They don't run the ball. They are a mess. The Bills, on the other hand, obviously did not look great or anything special against the New York Giants at home last Sunday night, but nonetheless they squeaked out a win, and I think that's something big moving forward for them. I know Bill Belichick and that defense, even with the injuries, is going to try to limit Josh Allen today, but I think Josh Allen and the offense is going to have a day, and I think the Bills win pretty big.
Yeah, I like the pick, man. Honestly, you were one of the first people that I've heard call out the fact that Bill Belichick may very well be on the hot seat. And to your point, man, I think it starts today, right? Maybe not starts. Maybe it starts to really pick up today. If the Bills are able to cover the spread, right, and win by multiple scores against this Patriots team. Um, it is interesting, thinking about the Bills' tough matchup, or wasn't supposed to be tough with the New York Giants, but it ended up being a really close game. That might actually play out worse for the Patriots, given
Right.
that the Bills may be
Right.
looking to bounce back,
Correct.
even after a win this week, and play much better. So I do like the pick. Something interesting in that game, man. Opponents 9 for 20 inside the red zone against New England. So we'll see if the Bills are able to punch it in against the
Yep.
Patriots. I imagine they'll be able to put up some points there, though. My first pick today is going to be the Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. You got the Cardinals, who have lost 3 straight. They've been outscored in the second half in those 3 losses, 51-12. So horrible second half production for the Arizona Cardinals. And I expect them to keep going downhill. Now, eventually they'll get Kyler Murray back. It sounds like they want to put him back out on the field, which
I
is
don't know why.
interesting given where they're at. But nonetheless, if that's the route they want to go, then we'll see how that goes when that time comes. But as of right now, it is Joshua Dobbs. And this is a Seattle Seahawks team that's coming off a loss to the Bengals. They need a win. They're trying to bounce back. And I expect them to do so as 8.5-point favorites. Interesting thing about Seattle last week against the Bengals in that I believe it was 17-13 loss. You had the Seattle Seahawks only scored 10 points off of 5 red zone trips. So they're struggling, similar to what we've seen from the Birds in that sense in the red zone.
Right.
So hopefully they can turn it around. But I'll go with the Seahawks as my first pick here, man.
Yeah, no, it's a great pick, and anytime you get a chance to pick against the Arizona Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon, it feels like you're going to come out on the winning side of
Lock.
things. Obviously, that team has been so weird, right, man? There's weeks where
Yeah.
they're competitive. Obviously, they had the win over Dallas. You go back to the way they played the Giants and the way that Daniel Jones came back, but that team is just an all around mess, and Seattle should take care of business today. My second pick is going to be an Arrowhead, and I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs at
Love
home
it.
over the LA Chargers. I just from what we watched last night, that Chargers team, or last Monday, obviously after the Phillies game, you and I were still together. We tuned in for the final 3 or 4 minutes of that Cowboys Chargers game.
Yeah.
And obviously, LA, we know what kind of sports town that could be. And we've seen our Eagles green obviously take over that stadium there as
Yeah.
well. But that Dallas blue definitely took over, and those fans took over there. And to watch Justin Herbert just never seem to make a play when it matters most.
Yeah.
Never have that 2-minute drive. Never, we're down 2. I'm getting the ball. Let me get you into field goal range. It never seems like he can do it.
Yeah.
Brandon Staley continues to be a joke. They are not walking into Arrowhead tonight. Or this afternoon, I should say, and beating Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I'm assuming, T Swift's going to be in the building, I'd imagine. So all eyes will be on that game, and Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley aren't walking into that building and winning.
Yeah, I'm with you on that pick as well, man. The Chiefs, you look at them as 5.5-point favorites against the Chargers. It's exactly what you said. Like one way or another, it feels like the Chargers find ways to lose games rather than find ways
Yeah.
to win them. You saw that last drive against Dallas, man. As you said, we watched that together. And the first play, I believe Keenan Allen caught a pass, ran out of bounds before the first down. They end up not getting that first down. Like that's the crazy part about this offense. It's like a mixture of like bad coaching to Justin Herbert crumbling in crunch time to the teams falling in place with the rest of the organization in that matter. So I'm with you with the Chiefs. And I do think the Chiefs are due for like a dominant win.
Right.
They haven't had a complete game. I feel like their offense hasn't really been able to get going just yet this season. Their defense has been off the Richter scale, though. They've been really good. So I'm with you there. My second pick here is going to be the Browns as 3.5-point favorites against the Indianapolis Colts. Doesn't sound like it should be a second pick, if I'm being honest. But we got some tight matchups today, quite honestly.
Yeah, we do.
Around the board. So I went with the Browns. Defense wins, right? And that's what I'm going off of here. You have Anthony Richardson, who's out for the Indianapolis Colts. I think that hinders them a good bit. Gardner Minshew back there. And we've just watched this Browns defense dismantle the 49ers, right? They really put it to the 49ers. They're a physical team. You look at Jonathan Taylor and the strong point of the Colts offense. I think the Browns will be able to limit him as well. So I'm going to go with the Browns here. We'll see what it looks like if Deshaun Watson plays, if he can get their offense going anywhere in this game. I did slam the under in this game, though. I think it was set at like 43 or 41, something like that. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring affair,
It
but
shouldn't
I am
be.
going to go with the Browns.
It shouldn't be, but you know what'll happen. But no, I agree with you, man.
Yeah. My luck.
I think it's an interesting spot for Cleveland because I think it could definitely be viewed as a letdown spot. Obviously, after last week's big win over the 49ers. But with that said, that defense was too much for San Francisco. And yeah, I know San Fran had injuries in Debo and CMC, so they weren't 100%. But that defense has proven to be a lot for a lot of good offenses so far this season. I can't imagine Gardner Minshew and company having success against Myles Garrett and those guys today. We'll see. Obviously, the quarterback situation and the offensive situation for Cleveland is another question. But I do agree with you. I think a slow, ugly, low-scoring
Very
type
ugly
of football game in Indianapolis will come away with a Browns win. For my third pick, I am going to go to the NFC South. And I am going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home over the Atlanta Falcons.
I like it.
Again, it's kind of pick your poison with these two overachieving teams at the moment, right? Is Desmond Ridder going to get to 4 wins and go 4-3? Or is Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield going to get to 4-2 on the young season? I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with Baker. I trust him more than I trust Desmond Ridder. Yes, they're a 500 ball club. I still have seen nowhere near enough from Desmond Ridder so far on this season to prove to me that he's going to go on the road and beat a division rival. That defense for Tampa Bay has been playing well for a majority of the season. I think Mike Evans gets going. I think that the Bucs will win today, and I think they'll cover as well.
I like that pick as well. I went with the Bucs in that game as well. Given they're at home, you mentioned it, Baker versus Desmond Ridder. I'll take Baker in that case, and I'll take the Bucs offense as well. I like the receiver duo. Rachaad White, solid. I think this is a game where the Bucs can take control of this division and kind of say, hey, we might not be able to match up with, say, the Lions or the Eagles, the top of the class in the NFC, but we can control our division and take it from here in that case. So I do like the Bucs there as well. My third pick, man, this is where it gets really tough.
It does.
I'm gonna go with the Rams over the Pittsburgh Steelers, although it is a tough one. It is a tight one. It is a toss-up, I would say. The big thing for me is the Steelers offense ranks 30th out of 32nd. So 30th out of 32 teams in the NFL, right? The big thing for the Rams, can they contain TJ Watt? I'm interested to see how that works out with the Rams offensive line. We know how much TJ Watt can disrupt a game. But nonetheless, I'm going to go with the Rams offense over the Steelers offense 7 days out of the week. And I think that the Rams are starting to find something with getting Cooper Kupp back. It will be interesting seeing, how the Pittsburgh secondary attacks this wide receiver duo. You can even throw in Tutu Atwell as well. They got some nice pieces there. But I'm going to go with the Rams. Kind of, once again, another team that can solidify themselves as a potential playoff team, a playoff contender, right? This is a Rams team that's kind of floating in the middle right now. We don't really know what they are, but they played some good teams really tough. And they've lost to some teams that maybe they shouldn't have lost to or played close. So this is a prove-it game for the Rams for me.
I'm looking at another 3-3 team. And I'm looking at our division.
Yeah.
But for some reason, God help me, I'm going to take the New York Giants.
Oh, wow.
At home today over the 3-3 Washington Commanders. Daniel Jones is questionable. I know that, that shouldn't be a big talking point because he has not played well all season. But I think regardless of quarterback play, I think Brian Daboll is too good of a head coach to start 1-6, to go 0-3 to start the year at home. I think with the backup quarterback and all the injuries they had last week to go into Buffalo and their defense be able to do what they did, I think that's something you can take forward at home today. I think they'll be able to turn over Sam Howell and get to Sam Howell, the most sacked quarterback in the league so far this year.
Yeah.
And I think that the Giants win an ugly football game and get their first home win of the season in front of their crowd.
It's crazy to say. It's interesting, man. I actually went to the Commanders in that game, but I do see where you're coming from. It's a rivalry game. Anything could happen in these games. It should be close. It's interesting because, you bring up the Giants. They're 1-5 right now. And it's like the Commanders are who the Giants were supposed to be to start the season, at least, right? The Giants were supposed to be that third team in the NFC East, that team kind of tailing the Cowboys and the Eagles in that division. And it's kind of been the Commanders so far. Sam Howell or Daniel Jones, like pick your poison between those two quarterbacks and what you like between them. But I do think it's interesting because what I was speaking about at the beginning of the show with the season being an 18-week season, you have a bye week built in, you got 17 games now. The Giants are 1-5, but things can change. There is time at 1-5 even to change direction. Depends on their schedule, who they're going to play against, how they can turn it around. But the season is not over yet, and a big win against the Commanders could, maybe spark something. I don't know. I'm not high on the Giants, but nonetheless, big game. I did go with the Commanders, but I get where you're coming from there. My next pick. I'm going to go with the Raiders over the Bears. Feels wild picking the Raiders as one of my picks here, but they're going against Tyson Bagent. I'm not sure exactly how to say his name. Came in against Minnesota after Justin Fields dislocated his thumb last week. 10 for 14, 83 yards, 1 interception, 1 rushing touchdown against the Vikings. You look at the Raiders, man. Josh McDaniels, right? Talk about hot seats. Talk about drama right now with Devontae Adams and him wanting the ball and wanting to get this offense going in Las Vegas. I think today is a good mark. No Justin Fields. That's a very bad Chicago team. Like, even with Justin Fields, they're not great. So without him, I'm going to take the Raiders at home against the Bears. And I did like the boost on DraftKings, man. Plus 200 for a Devontae Adams touchdown anytime today. Just given his comments, we know how it's kind of played out this season. Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown. I think Devontae Adams could be the next in line for that type of situation. Only because they're playing the Bears, who just suck. Like that's really the reason I love that play today. But I'll go with the Raiders over the Bears, man.
Yeah, man. I'm going to take the Ravens as my 5th and final pick here.
Interesting.
Very, very difficult game. Probably the best game of the 1:00 slate, in my opinion. But my thing here is something we looked at heading into week 6 and now heading into week 7. Who are the Baltimore Ravens? Obviously, I picked them to win the NFC or the AFC North. I picked them as a surprise team to get the number 1 seed and win the AFC this upcoming year. They're 4-2, but they're very up and down so far this year. Lamar Jackson has had weeks where he has shined and looked like MVP Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Lamar Jackson has also looked very pedestrian at times. Lamar Jackson's help, Lamar Jackson's receivers have let him down, a la last week, right?
Yeah.
So that Ravens team is very up and down. You are at home against a very, very good Detroit Lions team at 5-1 this year. Who are the Baltimore Ravens? That's the key for today. Can they come away with a win? I'm going to say that they will. Ravens are my final pick.
I actually love that pick as well, man. I looked at this game. This is a game where you look at two teams that got something to prove, right? But I do think this game, when you look at it from perspective of each team here, I think this is a bigger game for Baltimore than it is for Detroit. Now, obviously, it's another step Detroit can take towards looking like a true contender if they can beat Baltimore today. But they've also beaten the Chiefs already in Arrowhead. So, like, they have their contender test, like, type of win on the season already. Whereas Baltimore, this is going to be the best team they've played all year in the Detroit Lions. And to that point, I think, I'm going to go with the Ravens, who I just feel like needs this game a little bit more with the Bengals coming on. You just see Dylan just left the screen there. He is feeling a little sick, man. Still trying to get over that bug from earlier this week. So I'll kind of pioneer and steer the ship here throughout the rest of the show. If Dylan can hop back in, he'll hop back in if he's feeling a little bit better. My last pick to finish out the picks for today is going to be out of this Packers and Denver game. We won't be picking the Eagles and Dolphins game. Doesn't even out the picks. We like to keep them even so we can keep track here, see who's winning the picks here. But nonetheless, last game of this slate, we're going to go with the Packers over the Denver Broncos. What I'll say about this game, guys, good luck picking this one. I wouldn't lay any money either way on it because I think both of these teams are horrible. You have Jordan Love, who has cooled down a ton, 55.6% completion percentage, 1,083 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the season. As you know, he started the season very hot. The Packers got off to a good start. They've come back down to earth. Russell Wilson, man, having a decent season statistically, 65.9% completion percentage, 1,305 yards passing. Excuse me. 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It's just not translating to winning football. It's not translating to wins, more importantly. And you got the collapse for Caleb move going on in Denver right now, which is interesting because what the hell are they going to do with Russell Wilson, even in the offseason, let alone this season that has already gone to hell? They're trying to blow up the entire team. What do they do with Russ in the offseason? Because this guy's contract is disgusting. And he's not winning football games. That's what matters. As good as the stats look, he's not winning football games. Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry, Booty. I can't give love to the Bears today. I love Justin Fields. I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I think, once he gets back from the injury, he was just getting going in the season right before the dislocated thumb. Think you get him back, he makes the offense dynamic. It can keep you in games. But this Bears team, man, I picked them to win the division to start before the season. From what I've seen so far, that's not happening. But aside from that, this team is just far, far, far from being a playoff team, a division contender, or even a contender at all. So, I'm going to take the Raiders against the Bears with, what's his name? Tyson Bagent starting. That'll be interesting to watch. Not really, but sorry, Booty. Mike says, who controls the line of scrimmage in this Ravens game will win. Who can run the ball and set the pace offensively? I do agree, Mike. And I saw your pick earlier, picking the Lions over the Ravens. I do think it's a pick 'em, honestly. I do. But with that being said, I think the Ravens need the game a lot more. I believe, let me just double check here. I believe the Ravens are playing at home. I believe that's why they're favored in this game. Because it is a pick 'em. Let me just double check here. Yeah, in Baltimore. That's ultimately why I went with the Ravens. Home field advantage, Lamar Jackson prove it game, beat a contender, that type of situation. But you look at Goff versus Lamar in that game, it's something interesting. Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson have very similar totals on the season. I shouldn't say numbers because Jared Goff obviously passes the ball a little bit more, has better passing numbers, but when you add in Lamar's rushing stats, the totals kind of equal up from a total yard standpoint. So you have 1,618 yards for Jared Goff, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Lamar Jackson, 1,253 passing yards, 327 rushing yards, 5 passing TDs, 4 rushing TDs, 3 interceptions on the season. Very, very similar numbers, very, very similar teams in a sense. And these are two teams that are going to be in the playoffs, I would imagine, towards the very end. So it's a good one to pay attention to. It's definitely the best game of the early slate, in my opinion. But that rounds out picks for today. Let's take a look before we get out of here. Let's take a look at our power rankings for the week. Let me get us set up here. Usually got Dylan to handle this part. Let's get this overlay off. That way we can see the whole list here. All right. So we got our week 7 NFL power rankings. You can see kind of where we had everybody as of last week going into this week. You can see everybody's records. But just to give you an idea of mine, I obviously can't speak for Dylan's. But nonetheless, my idea here, obviously you had a lot of movement at the top. The Chiefs, for me, moved from 3 to 1. You obviously had the 49ers and the Eagles both taking losses last Sunday to teams that, let's be honest, they had no business losing to. That includes the 49ers. Even with the injuries to CMC, the injury to Deebo Samuel, you're supposed to beat the Cleveland Browns without Deshaun Watson. They had a ton of injuries on their side of the ball, so no excuses for the 49ers. But then the Philadelphia Eagles went ahead and won up the 49ers, losing to the Jets and Zach Wilson, while the Jets were down their top 3 corners in the secondary. So both very inexcusable losses for the top 2 teams, in my opinion, in the NFC right now. The Chiefs, they just continue to win. Their defense has looked outstanding. The offense obviously has room to grow with those young receivers. But as of right now, I think the Chiefs are playing their best football. They haven't lost since week 1, right? And, like I said, I think their offense has room to grow. I think they will be better. I'm still waiting for that complete game from the Kansas City Chiefs. Dolphins, they stay in the same spot. We're going to see, obviously, how they fare against the Eagles tonight. That's the second true contender that they played on the season. If you remember, they played the Bills earlier this year, lost to the Bills 48-20. That was the only contender that they played this season. You look at the Dolphins, I believe their opponents that they beat this season so far have a combined record of 5-24. So the 5 teams that they beat this season have a combined record of 5-24. That's not to say the Dolphins are frauds. I just have to see it to believe it. We got to see what they look like against some good competition tonight against the Eagles in Philadelphia. Detroit Lions move up above the Bills. Obviously, the Bills still won last week. They got a tough win against the New York Giants without Daniel Jones, but the Lions have just looked so good. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-6 last week, took care of business there, held them to 6 points. Defenses look great, versatile offense. I love what the Lions are doing. And like I said, this is going to be a nice test for them today in Baltimore against the Ravens. Buffalo Bills, I expect them to look a lot better against New England. Maybe these rankings will adjust. Say the Dolphins lose to the – we'll see how it plays out nonetheless. Jacksonville Jaguars, they come out with a huge win against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans on Thursday Night Football, 31-24. Trevor Lawrence plays with a sore knee. Able to fight through this one, 20 for 29, 204 yards, 1 touchdown. Travis Etienne, the versatile running back, 14 carries, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 receptions, 24 yards. So he had a nice game. Christian Kirk, man, the Jags got pinned to the cross for giving this guy a nice contract a few years ago. This man just continues to produce, he's become Trevor Lawrence's favorite target in this offense. 6 receptions, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. Derek Carr in this game threw the ball 55 times, guys. 55 times, 301 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Saw him screaming at Chris Olave for not finishing a route. Don't really know what's going on with that New Orleans offense. You look on the outside, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, right? Chris Olave, talent. They have talent on the offensive side of the ball. They just can't seem to put it together. It's really weird, but nonetheless, a big win for the Jags. And this team is moving now, right? Had the big win against the Colts the week before, the big win against the Buffalo Bills in London the week before that. This Jags team is looking for real, and they're starting to look like the team that I thought they would be before this season started. So shout out to the Jags. Baltimore Ravens, I think their best is still to come. I don't think they've reached their peak form, but they're coming off a win against the Titans over in London. That was a big win. The Dallas Cowboys, big win against the Chargers on Monday Night Football nonetheless. Still have some holes in there, though. Still have some question marks on that Cowboys team. But nonetheless, that's a good W on the road against the Chargers. Had the Dallas Cowboys take over that Chargers stadium, which is pretty usual at this point, given, the away teams that come into L.A. Let's take a look at what Darius is saying here. Give the Saints or the Falcons Tom Brady, and they're a playoff team. I actually kind of agree with this. You look at their quarterbacks right now, the Saints, Derek Carr, I thought they would be a lot better with Derek Carr, but what Derek Carr is starting to show me, man, is that he sucks and that he's not a winning quarterback. He can put up numbers, but he does not win games. And that's maybe something, maybe I'm kind of pinning Derek Carr to the cross too early there in New Orleans, but that's just what I'm seeing as of right now. And then obviously Desmond Ridder in Atlanta is just not the move right now. Still got time to prove himself. I'm not ruling him out yet, but have not liked what I've seen so far. So I do agree. Give him Tom Brady, give him Russell Wilson, give him, any type of, decent quarterback. And I think they would be in a lot better spot. But nonetheless, here we are. My number 10, I had the Seahawks last week, similar to Dylan on the Power Rankings top 10 here. Went with the Bengals this week. Obviously, the Bengals coming off a big win against the Seahawks. But the big thing for me in that win was the Bengals defense holding the Seahawks to 13 points. I think that's huge against a very stacked Seattle Seahawks offense. You got Kenneth Walker, you got DK, you got Tyler Lockett, right? Geno Smith's been playing some good balls. So for the Bengals to go ahead and get that win, it seems like they're getting back on track. Still got some games to prove it, and they're going to have some tough matchups going forward that they will have plenty of opportunity to prove their worth as a contender, like we thought they would be coming into the season. So I like what the Bengals have done. Dylan likes what the Seahawks have done. I'm not going to hate on that. Seahawks would be my number 11 as of right now, but I'm giving the Bengals the nod after beating them and kind of putting together two good wins to get themselves back to 500. And kind of, looking ahead, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to the Bengals, right? This is a team that I've liked coming into the season. I like them going forward from here on out, given that Joe Burrow seems to be getting back to his normal self. So that's going to round out the top 10 power rankings going into week 7. There's a lot of implications that can be made this during this week. Obviously, these week 7 matchups, as I mentioned, are going to be huge. Just want to make sure we get the overlay back up here to round out the show. Hopefully Dylan's feeling a little bit better, man. I'm sorry that he had to dip out on the show today, but hopefully I was able to keep it going at least a little smooth here. But nonetheless, hopefully Dylan's feeling better. We will be back later today on the DSM Media Philadelphia channel to break down the Eagles-Dolphins matchup, Sunday Night Football. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier. That's going to be a huge matchup in week 7. And it's going to show us a lot about both of these teams. I'll give you a precursor right now. I think the Dolphins, they're an explosive, they're an exciting offense. I have a feeling they're a little soft, though. So we're going to see. We're going to break that down. I'll obviously dig into that a lot more in Eagles pregame. That'll be on tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the DSM Media Philadelphia channel. But guys, as always, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on the video. Make sure you are helping us grow here on the NFL Turf Talk channel. And we will be back next Sunday with NFL Turf Talk Week 8 preview. We'll break down the previous this week's action. We'll get into our Week 8 power rankings and our Week 8 game picks. Guys, that's going to be it for this show. Once again, I'm Scotty, your host. You can find me at Scotty Drown on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, so on and so forth. Everybody, have a great rest of your Sunday. See you later for Eagles pregame.